Okay, we are live. This is the Zoom Boom, getting great audio into Zoom webcasts. My name is John Henry Dale, and I have with me my good friend Jesse Shultzaberger, who is a professional drummer and drum teacher. And hey, Jesse, how you doing?
Hey, great.
Nice.
Doing great. Thanks for having me. Whoops.
Nice. He's got the tabla samples all queued up, ready for some global,
that's right.
Some global
Trying to
funk.
multitask over here.
Nice. So the reason I put this together, I've been doing a kind of a series of just live streaming tutorials and just kind of know-how, because all of a sudden the entire music industry has evaporated before our very eyes, and everybody's moved to live streaming. So what that means is that now there is a need, I think, for trying to get good audio into these live streams that everybody is doing, because a lot of people end up using their webcam mics or their laptop mics, and those are sort of pretty tinny and kind of bad quality, as anyone probably knows who's ever tuned into like a webcast or a Zoom meeting, using only the onboard mic of your laptop or your phone. So we decided to put together this kind of halfway conversation, halfway tutorial on what we're doing as drummers, because we've kind of got a bit more of a complicated setup than most. So why don't we start and kind of just tell me what you're working with, Jesse?
Yeah, you want me to give you a gear rundown here?
Yeah, kind of.
So,
just like what are you using to now to like teach your students and
so I teach about 35 lessons a week, and basically overnight I had to go to an online platform here, and the studio I teach for, they wanted us to all go with Zoom for starters, and that's kind of where I jumped in. I have experimented with some of the other platforms, Facebook and that kind of stuff, as far as doing lessons, but Zoom's been working out pretty good. So what I can
it really seems to be the platform of choice. Like everybody is like, oh, just do Zoom. Like
and
all of a sudden it's like the only thing out there.
Yeah, and I think too, part of it is the local school system here has got the kids doing lessons on Zoom, and they're getting familiar with it, and it made sense for the lessons to go that way. So, like I said, I virtually had to go in. I had about 48 hours to figure out what the heck I was doing and kind of go live with this. The first day or so, I was running off my phone. Sounded terrible.
Yeah.
I tried to run off my tablet, and it didn't sound much better. And then finally switched to the laptop, and was getting considerably better results. Still not perfect. And then now I finally settled on running my mics entirely mic'd up, running into a Behringer XR-18,
right,
and then sending all that over to Zoom.
Right.
And so I've gotten much better results.
So when you said you used your laptop before, was it just doing the onboard mic on the laptop?
Yeah, I was using the onboard mic, and there are some settings on there that helped. I was using low volume cymbals, and that was helping a lot. Zoom didn't seem to sustain, especially off of the loud cymbals. It was clipping it, and distorting.
Well, here's a tip for everyone. There are audio options in Zoom, and I don't know if you can see. I don't know if this will show up in the webcast, but let me check. No, I don't think it will. But there are audio options at the lower left corner of Zoom where you can, maybe it does, but it's kind of, I think it's blocked a little bit by the title that we've got going on here. So let me, just a sec. I'm going to get that title out of the way for a second here. Okay. So that's, so everybody, we're actually not going directly from Zoom into Facebook. We're doing Zoom into Wirecast into Facebook, because we tested out Zoom directly into Facebook, which you can do with one computer. Tried it last Sunday and it wouldn't do it. Then we tried it again Wednesday and it worked, but now this Sunday again it's not going to it. And I think there might be something to do with like the traffic, the amount of live streaming traffic on Facebook. Maybe everybody's now live streaming on Sundays, I'm not sure, but for whatever reason it wouldn't go directly from Zoom straight into Facebook, so we had to do a kludge where we're kind of taking the Zoom computer and then running it into a separate laptop. So anyway, so to get back to what I was saying, if you go into Zoom, down here in the lower corner, there is this audio settings, and I think that's showing up actually good. Okay, so you go to audio settings, and you should see this dialog come up. And then when you go into advanced on the audio page, they have audio processing drop-down menus, and you want to disable suppress persistent background noise, and you also want to disable suppress intermittent background noise. That's when you're dealing with drums and kind of long sustaining instruments, because one thing that Zoom does, and just to actually let me finish it for a sec here, and then also there's an option up the top left where you want to turn on original sound, and that means Zoom is going to do no compression or like echo cancellation. Not no compression, because it's always, there's some audio compression on Zoom, but it'll cancel out the really aggressive like echo cancellation and stuff that when you're dealing with cymbals will be kind of important if you're doing drum lessons, or if you're doing any kind of sustained note type thing. That's really important. So anyway, there's that. So please continue.
Yeah, okay. So where was I? So let me just give you a rundown on this piece of gear that I'm using it and how I interfaced it. Zoom will take in a stereo signal. So what I've done is using the same, it should pop up for me, using the same pull-up chart for the audio settings. You can go here and it'll allow you to select a microphone input. And then on that input, I selected the Behringer XR-18.
Okay. I'm not seeing that, so you might need to share your screen.
Oh, okay. Whoops,
if you want to be
there we go.
demoing that.
Let's see if this works. Well, there's Facebook.
Yeah. Hey.
Anyways, there's just a tab. All you got to do is go into the microphone setting there, and you're gonna pick a mic, and just instead of using the internal mic on the laptop or your webcam, you're gonna select coming from your audio interface, whatever it is, and that self-populated in mine.
Yeah.
Now it only allows me to send a 2 channel mix. So what I'm doing is I'm sending everything into the mixer. I'm mixing output main left and right, and then I assign that to the channel 1 and 2 on the Behringer. Now that Behringer is kind of cool because you can turn any input into an output.
Right.
And I can walk you through that on the Behringer.
Right.
The other thing I did is
so you're summing everything in the Behringer. All your drum mics now have gone in there, and then the output of that is 1 and 2, right?
Yeah, correct.
And that's the input that you're selecting into Zoom.
Right, and here's that screen. I'll show you guys. Now, here's my Behringer mixer. Hopefully, you're going to be able to see this.
Look at that. That's dope.
Pop up.
Yeah.
My 1 and 2s is what's setting to Zoom. Here I've got a vocal mic, overhead mic, bass drum, ride cymbal mic, and then what I also did is instead of wearing headphones when doing Zoom or doing lessons, it really helps. Even if my students are just on doing their lesson off their cell phone, it's way better if they wear headphones because you're not getting this audio loop coming back through.
Yeah, and that's kind of a general rule for web conferencing, video conferencing in general. Put your headphones on.
Yeah, and I'm wearing.
Just don't try it unless you're really able to figure out the kind of monitoring and not getting feedback. But that's and the other big etiquette thing is also kind of like mute when you're not talking on a meeting and stuff, because that's another way that background noise can get into these things.
Yes.
So, for your
So a
students?
little trick that I did here with this is I ran the what's calling my headphone mix here, and this is your send, John Henry, coming back from whoever I'm talking to.
Yeah.
I'm running that into the Behringer, and then all of that is running to a bus, which is going to headphone amp. So I'm basically doing a headphone mix for me. That's me talking into the microphone, my
Right.
drums, and the student or whoever I'm talking to. This really helped me a lot because I found that when I was wearing headphones and I wasn't monitoring my voice, after teaching 8 lessons in a row, my voice was gone because I was shouting at the computer.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear my own voice. So to be able to mix
important.
myself back in was really a great trick. And, the Behringer has a headphone out on the front, but that's just a main mix, really. So being able to go through a bus, through a aux send to some kind of headphone amp, really saved the day for me.
Now tell me, sorry, and for people who don't know, what you're looking at here is the software interface for Jesse's
For this right here, here you
Behringer
go.
XR-18. So
Behringer XR-18, right? So it's 16. It's the 18 inputs. You have 2 line ins here on the top. You have
Right.
6 monitor mixes, 6 mains, headphone, and then it has its own built-in Wi-Fi, which is really slick. Usually, I just am controlling it off a tablet or something, and that's my mixing board. Right now I'm running it through Ethernet to get into this laptop so I can screen share with y'all.
Right. Okay. So it'll give you a screen on a tablet, a phone,
Yes.
and a
Yep.
computer if you connect to the Ethernet port of the computer as well.
Yes,
So
it's a pretty nice
pretty
piece
cool.
of gear.
That's
Pretty-
really cool.
And I would say too, if you're on a gig, it can do 6 monitor mixes.
Right.
I bought it as a recording interface. I'm going to Cubase. I bought it for that in mind, and now I've since used it on live gigs.
Yeah. So it's multi-purpose. You can use this as a straight-up audio interface and as a live gigging mixer.
Yep. If you got powered speakers or power
Yeah.
amps, it's no problem. Lots of guys are using them now.
Yeah.
One tip on that I would say is use an external router. It's going to give you a little more room.
A little more Wi-Fi signal than the.
Yeah, a little more of signal. You can
onboard
secure it
mic.
a little easier. So if you're playing in a big club with a couple hundred people, there aren't 200 cell phones bouncing off of it.
Right.
You can
right,
hide the network.
Right. Right.
And the other really cool feature is 5 people can connect to this thing at the same time wirelessly through the Wi-Fi. So, say you're having a rehearsal or you're on stage, everyone can mix their own monitor if you have the
Right.
app on your phone.
Right.
And that's super slick. And that's really been a great thing. Because
does your
especially
band
for
do
being
that?
a drummer, you're in the back of the room. It's hard to get the sound guy's eye sometimes. So if you can do your own mix, sometimes it's really nice.
Nice. Do you do that with your band? With
I
Janata
do that.
Pinata?
Yes, I do with Janata Pinata, and I've done it when I've played with the Woodshedders. Especially a lot of now a lot of sound guys I'm working with have this gear. They have the XR-18 or the X32, which
Yeah.
is just a 32 channel, but it pretty much does the same stuff. Plus.
I'm really thinking I might need to pick one of these up because what I'm using right now is the QSC.
I was going to say, John Henry, if you don't mind, real quick, I just want to show you how I routed this. I think this is an important thing.
yeah,
Maybe
sure.
this would help anybody.
Sure.
So what you do here on the Behringer, I can go to this in, out, up and down button.
Yeah.
It pulls up this screen. Now notice here instead of sending my main, this would be my main right left as if I was sending to front of house.
Right.
So I then route it to the USB 1 and 2, and that's how I get it to Zoom.
Right.
Through that. You need to be able to
Yeah.
do that.
Right.
And then just as
cool.
far as a return, on the channels here for your headphone mix,
Right.
I've just changed that to a USB input, and that's coming back from Zoom. And it's really,
Sorry,
it was
I just-
some trial and error, but sorry,
Can you
bud.
bring that back up again? Actually, that
I'm sorry.
screen, your Behringer screen again.
Yeah.
So I did have a question on. So, can you go over the two headphone, the white channels?
Yes.
What did you say you did for that again?
Okay, so what I did here is this has a channel source. If
Yeah.
you can see that, if you can see my cursor, channel source, and what you do is you just select that to USB,
Yeah.
and I'm bringing an input I'm turning that into the USB. There's nothing actually plugged into the front of my. There's nothing plugged in the channels 7 and 8 physically,
Right.
other than the USB cable coming back from
Gotcha.
the laptop here.
Gotcha.
So you just flip that. Otherwise, you'd be on a mic line input,
Right. Okay.
which would be here.
And so that's so that you can hear my voice in your headphones, but also you can hear your own drums and everything. That
yes,
you've
and that's
mic'd
how
up,
I got
right?
exactly. That's how I get you in my mix.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah, it's been pretty cool. It's been like I said, a learning curve here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
All right, let's see.
one of the things I have always noticed about drummers is often drummers end up being kind of like the de facto audio engineers of bands, just because I don't know, I guess we're just so used to like setting up all the gear and kind of being the techie tool guys. I mean, all musicians are a little bit gadgety, but I feel like drummers disproportionately might end up being like the audio engineer in a pinch, right?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I hate wrapping cables. I'll tell you what.
I don't know anyone that likes it.
I don't know if anyone likes it, but
when I worked at New World Symphony, people were like, "What do you do there?" And I was like, "I just basically wrap cables."
yeah, well,
That's kind of what I do, and then I make signals go from place to place and inside of them. So that's the Behringer XR-18, and it's how much is that, if you don't mind my asking?
it's about $600.
Yeah. I'm starting to think I might need to pick one of these up because it has several functions that I think are pretty cool. Number one is getting that software interface on your computer. And I'll show you mine here. Let me share my screen from my...
Yeah, and I will say
iPad,
I don't think the Behringer XR-12 has the interface. I think it's only the 18 and up
Okay.
do that.
Okay, right, yeah. So here's my interface, and this is from a screen share from my iPad. And both of these can be controlled from iPads and iPhones, right?
Yeah.
The difference with mine actually has I don't think you can see it in here, and I've only got one camera, but the actual mixer itself also has a screen on it, so you don't have to have an iPad, but you kind of want an iPhone, because if you've ever sound checked a gig and you don't have the front of house guy there, it's a hell of a lot easier doing it with an iPad out in front of the band where you can adjust all those levels. So that's pretty cool with the network connection being able to get you into a laptop, because, for example, that might have been a little easier in this situation. But basically, it's kind of a similar setup with the QSC, and in my case, I'm actually not running the QSC directly. This is the other thing. The QSC does not work as an audio interface for your computer. You can't interface directly with your DAW. It only has capacity. USB is just for attaching an SSD drive, where you can. That's one thing I don't think you can do on the XR-18 is it has. You can record to a SSD straight out of the like the whole master bus or whatever you want can go.
Right.
It can be a multi-track recording.
Yeah, you can do that on
SS
this. You can multi-track.
Oh, nice. Can you?
You can output it as a multi-track.
Can you attach it to a drive, or how do you record when you're doing that?
To a laptop or something.
Yeah.
That's how I do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the other models has a SD card in it, and then you bounce it down after the session.
Right.
But yeah, I don't have that one.
So, well, why don't we get into a little bit of what people are maybe here to hear, and see if you can kick a beat for us and kind of
Cool,
see
man. I'd
what
love
this all
to.
sounds
Let's
like.
see here. Let me just mute this mic.
The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-published number.
Yeah. Well, that sounded good here. Hopefully it sounded as good on the webcast as it
Yeah,
did
thanks, man.
in my headphones. Yeah. I mean,
That's fun stuff.
hell yeah, that's such a crazy difference between, I'm just imagining if if I was hearing that on a cell phone, and when you can actually hear, and here's the thing, Zoom is gonna compress. Like even if you've got like the best monitor mix going on, and you got all your ducks in a row with everything, and all your EQ and gains and gates and everything on your mixers are set perfectly, there's still going to be inherent compression that Zoom introduces when it's going to person and also on a webcast, and that's basically any webcast too. It's you could certainly help with having an audio interface and multiple mics going into that, but there will be some compression. But that sounded great. That sounded
Thanks.
really.
I was gonna say we talked about this the other night when we were chatting, and for me as a teacher, our job is to inspire kids or other people to play music.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that I think we can achieve that is not just by teaching the lesson itself, but letting them see what we're doing, trying to give them something to go off of, right? And like we were, you and I were saying the other night, like, we're not recording a album over Zoom. This isn't the end all be all for audio.
Yeah.
But it sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
And if I'm a student, I'm expecting my teacher to sound better than me.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. For sure.
And I want to be able to hear articulation and all that, and not get blown away with static and digital noise. And I think that's a big takeaway on this, because
have you noticed a difference with your students? I mean, when you're from before versus now, when you're using a kind of a more elaborate,
totally. I mean, just on those first couple of days where I was like, all right, we gotta do these lessons. And we told the kids, and it's a learning curve for both of us, for us and the student. And I think that we come back the next week and the students are sounding a little better.
Yeah.
But like I said, I feel like I'm not yelling at, they're like, I can't hear what you're playing. You play this, and especially start doing you start playing singles or something quick like that on a snare drum, it's gone. I mean, you play so some kind of articulation there is going to help, because otherwise it's just it's just noise.
Yeah. I'll tell you right now, folks, a crushed stroke roll is never going to sound good on any kind of standard iPhone mic or laptop mic. It's going to sound like a big wash of white noise, and like you said, you're not going to get any articulation, any kind of finesse that's going to come through that.
Right.
So that's,
totally. And before I set all this, before I kind of went to this interface, I was using these low volume cymbals, and they were still tweaking out the rig.
Are those the ones with the holes in them, the Zildjian ones?
The Zildjian, low volumes. And I've got a set, and they're great. But honestly, I mean, just trying to, the other day I was teaching a kid this kind of a thing. But and trying to like bounce around on that ride belt, and you can't really pull that off. I mean, those low volume cymbals, you can't do a point.
Right.
But you know, it's so much nicer here on the kit with the big cymbals, and
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
you could talk about some more like subtleties.
So let me kind of talk about what I'm doing here with. I've got but before I get in that, so your setup is you got two overheads, right? Just
Two overheads,
Yeah.
two tom mics,
Yeah.
a bass drum mic, and that's it. And then just a sample pad.
So you got Tom, you got Mike on the high tom,
On the
the rack tom,
Rock tom and the floor tom.
and the floor
Yep.
tom. And what are those
Yep.
again? What mics are you using?
Those are Audix.
Audix.
It's just it was a mic kit that I bought years ago, and then two overhead condensers, and then the Shure Beta bass drum mic, the big football mic.
Oh, hey, you know what? We had a question. I wanted to get to this question. This guy,
Okay.
Steve Watte, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but he said, so how do you mix students' voice into your headphones?
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Stevie? So like I was saying, the way I mix the student's mic is I from Zoom, I'm selecting the output, and the output is my I assign it to two channels on the Behringer. It when I pull down the tab, it says assign it to headphones, assign it to headphones on the laptop, assign it to speakers on the laptop, assign it to groups of two on the Behringer. So I assign it to, on mine, I assign it to track 7 and 8. It then comes into the Behringer. I'm getting line levels. From there, I can go to my sub mix or my monitor mix, essentially. I make a monitor mix. I'm outputting that to a headphone amp, external headphone amp, and then from there, I'm coming back and coming into my in-ears.
Okay.
And so this
So
is
that
something I've noticed
that was
with
a little
students.
complicated. I'm not even sure I followed
Sorry,
that.
maybe I went there a little fast. So
Yeah.
basically, I'm just routing it from Zoom to the Behringer to a mix to me.
Okay.
And this has been really helpful because I've noticed, some kids, they're on the laptop and it's louder. Some kids are on the phone and it's right off their hi-hat and,
Yeah.
or whatever. And I need to adjust that, or they're blowing my ear off, or they're just on a practice pad and I might need to crank that. So it's been nice
So
being
you've
able
got
to
you've got
adjust
independent
that.
fader control of your students' signal
Yeah.
in the Behringer software interface, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
That's pretty important.
Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I hope so too. So another thing is, you've got a sample pad there. You got the Alesis, what is it, Sample Pad Pro?
Pad Pro, yeah.
Yeah, and so one other thing, a lot of drummers are incorporating sample pads, or maybe you're doing a demo for a whole band setting. So I've got like a little bass synthesizer and a kind of and a Roland SBD. So I'll just play a little jam here on my end, and I'm gonna mute my lav mic so it doesn't get all boomy. And that's another thing. If you've got a really live mic, like I do right now, if you're doing a demo like drumming and stuff, you might want to mute it, folks, because that can pick up the extra, kind of wash of the cymbal and everything. It might be a little cacophonous. So I'm gonna mute that now, and then I'll kick a little beat here. So there you go. That's a little kind of example of you can pull, you could mic up a whole band, if you had your bass
totally.
player, your guitar player. You could also be running. You probably got extra inputs on that for your, like, if you wanted to do a demo, for example, or if you wanted to do a whole live band set live on the internet, you could probably run it all through that Behringer, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
As long as you can boil it down to 2 channels to output to whatever you're streaming through.
Right. Right.
It like I said, Zoom is a 2-channel. Facebook Messenger, I looked at that. That's a 2-channel thing. I actually took this into Facebook Messenger.
Right.
The one thing I found on Zoom, and I don't know if Messenger has this, I don't know if Skype has this, but something that I think is cool on Zoom is, at least for teaching lessons, is it has a record feature. Mm-hmm. So, I go, okay, here's this drill, hit record, get it, you know, and then the kids can, or whoever my students are, can go back later. So
you send them audio files via Messenger?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And they could do it right in the lesson. I mean,
nice.
Of course I could film something and email it to them or whatever. But it's nice to be able to do it real time. Like, oh, do that again. Let me just get that.
Yeah.
And that's something that, some of my students have been doing. And I think it's nice being able to go back and watch what your teacher is doing.
Hell yeah. Speaking of teaching and educational resources, I'm looking right now at your book. It's called Foundations of Drumming. So for those of you who don't know, Jesse put out a book. What was that, 3 years ago?
3 years ago, just about 3 years. Yep.
Okay. And you did another run of it recently, as I recall.
Yeah,
right?
I've done 3 pressings.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations, man. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Very cool.
So that's, if anybody wants that, you can contact me directly, jschultzaberger@gmail.com. I can get you one. You can message me on Facebook or whatever. Mm-hmm. You can also go, I have a online store through BookBaby.
Okay.
So it's Foundations of Drumming. You can go to BookBaby. You can also get it through Amazon. But
do you have a website with all this stuff on it, or is it?
I don't. I just have my artist page on Facebook.
Okay.
Jesse Shultzaberger Music.
Okay.
But yeah, it's out there. All the support really it helps, and
yeah, for sure.
I appreciate it.
No,
and I teach lessons, and that's the other thing is, if you need a lesson or if you know somebody who needs a lesson, I am definitely available. I'm hanging around the house, playing drums all day.
Hell yeah, yeah. Hit this guy up, folks. He's been teaching for years, and he's an amazing drummer and a really great teacher. And so, as more and more of the music world kind of goes online, Jesse's somebody that you can kind of depend on to, if you're, and a lot of people honestly are taking up like instruments right now because it's like,
yeah, there's nothing to do.
There's nothing to do. So it's probably a good, and you know what? Drumming is really therapeutic, I will say from personal experience. It's a really good way to get out a lot of tension. So if you're stuck at home, you got cabin fever. Now, probably most people, in apartments don't have the ability and to play a real drum kit, but there are silent headed drum kits, mesh heads that you can get, and you can also get like Roland electronic kits and stuff. So,
sure.
And so yeah, hit up Jesse. His book's called Foundations of Drumming, and then it's facebook.com/Jesse Shultzaberger Music.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, so that's JESSESHULTZABERGER.
Good job. Good job.
Yeah. So, what else should we get into here? Well, why don't you know what? We've been talking a lot. Like, I'd like to hear you jam a little bit more, and then you jam, and I'll do another jam. We can kind of hear, what we've actually been talking about this whole time.
Yeah,
I think
that's what we're here. Yeah, that's what it's all about. And I think a good thing to point out too, even at this point, is like, man, we just want to play drums, and we kind of been tossed into this thing, and it's cool. It's a learning curve. Don't get me wrong. I like it, but we have to remember, like, we can't get all sucked into this stuff. We still have to make sure we keep up that joy of drumming.
Absolutely.
That's where it's at.
Absolutely, man. The whole media narrative right now is just really super gloomy, and everybody wants you to be, afraid and paranoid, and as you should be. I mean, within reason, because it's a pandemic. So don't be, crazy. But at the same time, it's like, you don't have to. It doesn't have to, like, totally knock your whole life out. And I'm taking this whole thing as a really good opportunity to just get back to practicing, get back to, doing the stuff that I love, and really working on some fundamentals that are important to keep up.
Yes. All right, let's see what we can do here.
All right, kick it.
Let me try that again. Push the wrong button.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Dig it. So what are those samples you're rocking on that?
Oh, dude.
Yeah, this is
So yeah. So some of this. So this sample pad's kind of cool. It has a SD card that you can load. You know, some of these you can plug in. I don't know if you're rolling, you just plug it in the computer and download straight to it. Is that how that works?
On this one, you can do it two ways. You can load it to a USB drive or a SD card.
Okay.
Or you can actually connect this directly to your computer and drag and drop from. There's a piece of roll-in software.
Okay.
That allows you to drag and drop straight from your desktop onto that. And that, for me, is way preferable.
Yeah, that's nice. This thing is SD card. I got to pop in and into my computer and pop it out.
Yeah.
It's a little clunky, but for whatever, it's fine. I'm liking this thing. So when the Alesis, this thing comes programmed with about, I don't know, 10 kits or something.
Yeah.
And then you can put like a ton of sounds into it. I mean, I'm nowhere near maxing this thing out.
Yeah. Very cool.
But what Alesis does is they give you access to this giant library of samples and loops and all kinds of stuff, and you can just download off their website. And then so then a bunch of this is my sort of my dub patch, and so they're pretty fun, and on the site there's all the dub patches are laid out at tempo markers. Yeah. So you can get, the effect goes at 80 BPM or it goes at 120 BPM. Or whatever.
Right. So so that can't. Does that change if you change the tempo, master tempo on that thing? Will it?
This thing doesn't. Yeah, that's one feature I wish this had. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't loop like your Roland does, and I wish it did.
Right.
But the one way I've sort of gotten around that is this thing has pitch control, and if I just up and down the pitch control, I can slow down or speed up the sample.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
I mean, especially for the dub things.
Yeah.
I mean, when it's a voice thing, I've done a couple of voice samples, for a couple tunes that we've done with You're Not a Pinata, and I basically have sampled them in time.
Nice.
I just we do them in time and then put them in.
Yeah. Very cool.
But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's kind of fun when you're, you know all about it. You're way more into this stuff than I am. And
yeah, I've been an electronic drummer since almost I was a acoustic drummer. Because for those of you who don't know, I got into drums basically playing drums along with electronic music. The first thing I did was I started playing as percussion at like a drum circle. But when I got into college, I'd been well into raving and going all kinds of electronic music stuff when I was in high school, and so that was kind of where my head was at musically, and just with programmatic stuff. So I kind of told my drum teacher to teach me how to play all the sampled hip hop beats that I was hearing in drum and bass, and the hip hop samples were really funk samples from Clyde Stubblefield, the 60s, Motown stuff. But so it's kind of funny, I sort of came about into studying funk and jazz drumming in a very reverse engineered kind of way, because I had started playing along with drum and bass. And the Amen break is basically the kind of foundation of original drum and bass music. And I think I probably heard the Amen break in a drum and bass record before I ever heard the drummer. Who's the drummer who did that again? It was
on Funky Drummer. Is that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Clyde Stubblefield.
Was that Stubblefield who did the Amen break though? God, I forget. It's somebody. Anyway, it's one of James Brown's drummers, and yeah, it's funky as shit. And so I had heard that as this kind of hyper sped up, 160, 170 BPM, loop of
breakbeat.
Of this breakbeat, and then my drum teacher was like, you know what that is, right? That's the funky drummer. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I heard that everywhere. And so that's how I kind of came at it. So I've been playing along with electronic music for 20 plus years at least, maybe more, 25. So I love it, but I think acoustic drums are kind of where my heart and soul are at. There's nothing better than making sound with your own hands, and that's always my true love. But
yeah, and it always works, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It always works. Hey, it still works.
Yeah, amazing. That's
this
the
thing
day.
might poop out, but
And and speaking of tech failures, sorry to any of you who were watching last week when we had this massive crash, and I might have hurled out all sorts of colorful expletives in anger at Facebook.
You gotta get that on the blooper reels, man.
Yeah, so the thing is, this stuff, especially when you're live streaming, Zoom 1-to-1 is one thing. That's usually pretty solid. But when you're streaming Zoom live, like we're doing now, we had this set up, last Sunday, and we had it all sound checked on Zoom. Everything was great. We're like, okay, sounds good. And then we tried, or I tried, for hours to get it to go, just via the Facebook API from Zoom. And there's a little more option in Zoom here. Whoops, wrong computer here. So anyway, on the lower right-hand corner, on the menu bar, when you tap on the screen, there's a More button. And this is only, I think, if you have a Pro plan, by the way. So you can only webcast with Zoom or do live streams to Facebook and other destinations if you have a Pro plan or above with Zoom. So be aware that, if you're just doing 1-to-1 and you don't have you've got the free plan, you won't be able to kind of do that straight from Zoom into Facebook. Anyway, it didn't work. And I couldn't, I filed a support ticket with Zoom. I was like, hey, why is this not doing it? I tried every browser combination. I tried Firefox, I tried Chrome, I tried Safari, I tried it on Mac. All the Zoom software was up to date, on the Mac and the PC. I tried every browser combination on both Mac and PC, still no dice. And so I'm fairly convinced at this point that Zoom is experiencing some kind of massive, either Zoom or Facebook Live are both experience, explosive growth in the amount of live streaming that they're seeing, and that's probably why it's not working. But it did work Wednesday when we tried it. We had a nice sound check on Wednesday. Like, all right, we're ready to go. And then again today, come back, and it's like, and the progress bar to Facebook stops at a certain point. So what we had to do, or what I had to do today, was take the output of this computer here, my MacBook that's running the Zoom conference, and I'm doing get into a little bit of live streaming geekery here, right? I'm taking the HDMI output of the MacBook, which is the Zoom screen, and that is going into a Elgato capture card. I think it's called a CamLink 4K. It can capture up to 4K via HDMI. So that CamLink 4K is a little HDMI input dongle that goes actually USB 3. So it's so you can get HDMI outputs into your computer, because I don't know of any computer, any laptop that comes natively with an HDMI, a straight HDMI input. So you usually have to do some kind of video capture card. So we're doing that, getting the Zoom video out of the MacBook into the PC, but then also I've got to get the Zoom audio and the whole QSC mixer audio into that. So that is then, I'm taking an output from the audio interface that's connected to the MacBook, which is the Zoom computer, into another one that's connected to the PC, because it's really hard to get get it into the PC just on the little headphone input port. You need a little Y cable, and then you can't monitor the stream from the live encoding computer. Anyway, so I'm going into Wirecast now. So this is being encoded by Wirecast, which is a live streaming software, and so that was like a whole other level of audio sound checking that I had to do to get the audio levels right in Wirecast, and then preview it. So there's a lot of learning curve if you're really going to get into this stuff that you probably want to check out. And there's a really good streaming resource doc that I'll share in the comments later. But it's you need to get familiar with like how to what an RTMP URL is and what a stream key is, and how to authorize streaming software to go to your Facebook account if you're going to do kind of a more elaborate setup like this. So anyway, that's just a little kind of intro to the sort of issues you can deal with, because there's a lot. You can really deal with a lot of issues technically when you're live streaming, and that's why a lot of people, I think, end up doing post-produced stuff for YouTube.
Yeah, totally. I mean, right. And I will say too, like I said, it's been a learning curve for all of us. And one thing, a lot of people out there doing it now. Yeah. And but really, the community, the music community, has seemed to be really supportive. Like anybody I've asked a straight up question to, they're like, "Yeah, just do this." Yeah. And this is what's up. And between watching YouTube tutorials, calling you 5 times a day, I'm on some Facebook groups with some musician groups and drummer teacher groups. Yeah. Even my drummer teacher groups, Sabian, I'm part of the Sabian Education Network, and they did a whole cast just the other day. And this guy's basically doing the same thing we're doing, and taking it from, hey, look, you can do this off a cell phone, to you can do this on a big computer with multi cameras and video switchers and the whole deal. And it's how much money do you want to spend? Yeah. But honestly, the cool thing for me has been all this gear that I'm doing all of this with, I had already months ago. Yeah. Right. And I already had it. At least I was familiar with it. On your computer. Are you just using the webcam on your computer? No, I'm using an external webcam. Okay, you got it. So because my laptop's down here. Okay, yeah, it's a decent, because it looks like a decent camera. And for those of you out there watching, I'm actually using a DSLR, or a Micro Four Thirds camera to be specific. It's a Lumix GH4. So to give you an idea of, this is another thing. You may have seen the swirling northern lights back behind me. So that is something you can do in Zoom. I should go in and I'll go ahead and show people kind of what I'm doing for that, because that's, I'm gonna just take these titles off for a sec. Come on. Okay. So to get this kind of look back, first of all, I have a whole green screen studio, basically. I painted everything in here, and you'll see that in a sec. Okay. So you go to your lower right into your video settings. There's video settings and audio settings on your lower left. So you go into video settings.
and you do virtual background, right? So if I just click on none, then you'll see what I'm dealing with now. Okay, so, right, so there's my green screen, green studio. And I built this because I love doing green screen stuff because it's just, you know, I'm wacky and weird and I love putting random stuff behind me. So, so go back into video settings, virtual background. And there's a little option here. If you do have a green screen, you want to put it behind you, you say, I have a green screen. And that's one cool thing about Zoom is you can actually, it's one of the few, I think more video conferencing softwares are getting into this, but it's one of the few I know that actually has a green screen chroma key option. So you hit I have a green screen, and then it'll put that background behind you. So let me move this so people can kind of see what I'm dealing with. All right, so, and I just chose that from one of these. And then you can also like load in your own photo as a background here. I can add an image. Let me see. Where's the Jesse, JH1? Yeah, so there we go.
Man, look at those handsome devils.
Yeah, look at these guys. These freaking guys. So yeah, so that's a quick way to kind of give a little bit more, you know, visual flair to your webcast to kind of be kind of fun. Yeah, so go back to the Northern Lights here. So that's kind of just a little brief intro about, you know, some of the visual settings, but. I'm going to get into a little jam myself here. And so speaking of drum and bass tempo stuff, I'm put on this. We'll see what this sounds like. Hopefully this is going to be a cool little bass line. Let me see. Let's see. That's a little fast. Hold on. Let's drop that to 80. There we go. Sometimes like a half tempo bass line is kind of better for doing a like 160 BPM drum and bass beat, right?
Oh yeah.
Mute my mic here. All right. There's my little acid drum and bass jam for you.
Nice, dude. Love it. So the big question is, and the thing that we're really dealing with on this is, when are we going to get to the point where we can play together?
Well, here I actually have some pretty direct experience with that, and I'll talk about it right now. That is very hard to do with this software. With any software that you have that's consumer grade, stuff like this, like Zoom, Facebook, there's always going to be some degree of latency. But there is a program that was developed, and we used to work with this at New World Symphony when I was there, and we put on these conferences called the Networked Performing Arts and Production Workshop, NPAPW, and I worked on a couple of those when I was there, and we did some of the most advanced and experimental live, real-time, multi-site, multi-country interactive performances that I've ever worked on. Easily the most complicated. And we used a program called Lola, which was built by some researchers at the University of Trieste. I'm not sure if that's pronounced right. It's in Italy, I think in Trieste, Italy. And there's a guy, what is his name? His name's Claudio something. Anyway, he's kind of the ringleader of this. And with Lola, you can get, I think, transatlantic latencies down to maybe 70 milliseconds send and return. So most people can hear anything above, at least any musician that is, reasonably kind of sharp with their ears can hear above 10 milliseconds. You get into 20, 30, that's when you start hearing slight delays. And then with most streaming software, you're dealing with at least that kind of latency, if not considerably more. So with this Lola software, it uses you have to have a very specific type of camera made by, I think, Xiaomi, some Chinese company, and there's a couple others. And there are these cameras that use USB 3 or some, really, rapid bus speed to get the cameras into a video capture card that can handle it. And then you have to use, I believe you have to use an RME interface. RME is a German audio interface manufacturer, and they make what many people regard as kind of like the industry standard of sort of, not the super, super high end, but like a high end, very stable, rock solid drivers. And so with an RME PCI card, or I think with one of the Thunderbolt interfaces, you can use that with this software. It's very, very niche, very custom. I think there's, you have to have a certain level of a PC with a certain kind of graphics card. It's got to be up to a very pretty high standard, even by modern standards. And so we did performances where people were, we had like a pipe organist in Prague connecting with, I think it was maybe a guitar trio in Spain.
Wow.
And then we had dancers up on the roof at New World Symphony who were dancing. We were playing this music, and then they were like kind of real-time, dancing to that music. But we had people in multiple countries playing. You're never going to get super fast technical, like, 30-second notes, 64, that kind of speed of very, like, rapid arpeggios and stuff playing together like that. But you can definitely do some longer glissando violin stuff, and yeah, they had a guitar trio playing, and so we've done a bunch of these interactive, but you need very specialized gear to do it. So, maybe this will be the era that kind of brings a lot more of that stuff in online and kind of normalizes it a bit more. But so we got really, really into the weeds of live streaming and especially live interactive collaborations at New World Symphony. But I don't see 99.5% of people doing that. You have to have very specific gear, and you have to have a real budget from to do it. But it can be done, but it's not on this kind of stuff, at least unless it's like very slow ambient stuff. But anything with like a beat that you've got to keep, metronomically with another person in another location. You could do some stuff where you actually like time the latency. You can measure the latency and maybe but you get into a lot of the weeds on that stuff too. So unfortunately, right now, I don't think we're there on a mass like a mass market level, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, I think this year is going to bring out a lot of innovation, actually, in like live streaming and video stuff. I think we're going to start to see, a lot more people getting into it. And it's funny, this thing has been this very niche, industry, not totally niche, but kind of like a little geeky, that I kind of happened into about 12 years ago, and all of a sudden it's just all anyone is doing. So
you got to. What else are we going to do?
Exactly.
I mean, this is my job. This is my job. And
but yeah, I kind of wanted to get maybe we're getting on towards an hour here, I think. Yeah, just a little bit over. So maybe we can wrap it up soon. But I wanted to maybe get into some of the kind of like looking towards the future and what do you see? Where do you see this all going? How is this? How are we talk a little bit about coping with this stuff as a normal human being, but maybe you want to talk a little bit about that.
I think a couple things. First, just as far as from the performer end of things, I mean, just me seeing this in the last couple of weeks. So many musicians I know are out here now doing live streams. They got the virtual tip bucket or whatever, and they're in their living rooms playing a concert and getting paid. As I don't think anyone's getting rich at this point, but
I mean that's the thing. It's like the value prop is so different, when you're playing a live stream for somebody versus people are going to pay. They're going to pay $300 to go see Madonna at the thing.
That's an experience. That's the experience.
Or they're going to pay $20 to see whoever their favorite jazz band. But are they going to pay that kind of money for a live stream? I mean, and especially now everybody's been shut down. So I think it's totally unprecedented. Everything is kind of like whoa, like we've just had to adjust.
I mean, I think you're like
really
me. Like most of the people on my friends list are musicians, and it's like just scrolling Facebook or even whatever, Instagram or whatever. It's live stream after live stream after live stream. I'm just everyone's doing them, and it's cool. It's definitely cool. You're getting to see that. I think when we all can get back out and get into the clubs and get into the festivals again, it's going to be a really good time.
Yeah, man. I think some people are going to be ready to let some steam off at the end of this. So let's definitely look towards that time. I really hope we can kind of get through this and not end up in a permanent sort of surveillance society where everybody's being monitored with temperature checks and there's some really legitimately kind of dystopian scenarios that could come out of this. So I think that's one thing I want to really encourage everybody is be very vigilant right now about not letting everything slide into this kind of morass of just chaos and despair. I think it's really important to keep up your own spirit and not let all this stuff. Take it seriously. Take all these health guidelines seriously. Obviously, this is this unprecedented pandemic, but also don't let people make this be the rest of your future, because it doesn't have to be. And if I have anything to do with it, it's not going to be. I'm not going to just stay inside for the rest of my life. So
no, and I think doing just what we're doing right now, this for me has been really good. It's been therapeutic. I mean, we've been working this for 2 weeks, and it's it's giving us something to work towards. We got it's good. We're still in the process.
Yeah,
sure. Which I think is important. And I was talking to my brother about this earlier, and I was like, we're holding up, and all our gigs are canceled, and we're having to do this and that. But it's but we're all sitting home, we're shedding, we're getting better, we're learning. We're gonna come out of this thing, hopefully, in the fall or whenever we get back to work, and we're gonna come out swinging.
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
And we're gonna have new tools in the kit, and we're gonna have some new, and I think it's great, and I think we're going to see an uptick. I mean, the creativity that's going to start rolling out of this. I think people are at home, artists are at home, musicians are at home, and we're people are, when times get tough, that's when some really great stuff starts happening.
Yeah, man, it really does produce, tough times produce really good music, really great art. And what was I going to say? Oh, God, I just totally spaced. Oh, yeah, on the note of just practicing stuff, there's been, how many times in the past 10 years have I just been like, man, if I just had a year,
Right.
to do nothing but practice and to do nothing but like work on my shit, and because I've, there's never enough time in the day. As you get older, you just start getting more and more responsibilities, and you don't have those days where these days I don't, at least, where I can practice 8 hours a day. It's hard, but there's still so many things. It's a lifelong journey of learning. Music is, for me at least, and there's been so many things I wanted to work on. Like I wanted to learn how to play double pedal, a little bit. So I got this offset symmetrical double pedal, and that's want to learn a little bit more on keys, a little bit more on guitar. There's so many ways that we can use this time to like really do what we should be doing all along, which is just practicing. And when I think about, like I had some really great gigs last year at Ball and Chain doing this party called Rumba Casa, and probably I'd say the best gigs I've ever done, actually, and really, really fulfilling. But man, it was so much work getting ready, and then the lead up to those things of because I was audio engineering, DJing, playing drums, and like kind of project managing the entire thing. It was more stress than I've ever had, but like also more fulfilling. But like leading up to those points would be so much pressure, and just like, oh God, everything's got to be right, and I just get so. And so for me, I find myself well like the whole schedule's cleared, and it's almost like a kind of a relief in a sense of just, hey, all I've got to do is work on my chops,
That's it, man.
So, well, let me do another parting shout out to Jesse and push his book here. Everybody, he's got a book out called Foundations of Drumming. It's a great kind of incremental approach to the drum set. I think would you describe it as a kind of an introductory book?
Yeah, I would say it's a beginner to intermediate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's a really great book to start out with for, if you've got kids or if you're, starting drums as an adult too.
Yeah, I mean, totally. And I have adult students who they work through it. It's good.
Yeah.
And so if you need help working through it, give me a shout.
Word. So that's facebook.com/Jesse Shultzaberger Music.
Yes.
We'll post a link up in the comments after this. And hit him up for lessons too. His schedule has been cleared, other than the lessons that you got right with all your students from Ellsworth.
Yeah, I'm still teaching about teaching about 30 lessons a week still.
Still, wow.
Online.
That's
Yep.
awesome. That's awesome, man. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad that this is not been an entire like routing of your whole teaching schedule, because I know a lot of people, man. A lot of my friends who are DJs and drummers. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, it's tough.
Done. So
It's tough.
Yeah,
I was thankful to already have those students and, not being out there trying to drum them up,
yeah, for sure. Well, you got the rig for it now, and I think it sounds great on my end. I'm sure it sounds great on their end too. So thank you again for joining me on this little
thank you.
tutorial and on getting great sound into Zoom webcasts. And I think we'll. You want to close with a jam here?
Sure.
All right.
Yes, y'all.
Hell yeah. Hey, you know what I realized? I think we might be able to actually do a jam together because I'm getting your audio and then I'd be playing it at the same time that it's going in. So I think we might actually be synced we wouldn't do this if we were in Zoom only, but I think I'm hearing it at the same time that it's going into Wirecast and my drums are going in at the same time. So try to kick a beat. Let's do a little experiment here and see if we actually can jam live
I'll
together.
take it. I'll keep
all
it
right?
easy. I'll keep it grooving.
Yeah, man.
All right. I think we can figure that one out for next time, my bro.
Yeah, let's try to figure that out. I think. Oh, sorry. I think it only works one way with you coming in because your audio is coming to me. If you're jamming with me,
Gotcha.
it's coming. I'm going back, and then you're introducing. But I think it works like in a kind of a one-way thing. But anyway, let's do some more experiments, and let's make that co-video episode number 3. We'll see what we can do with like actual live jams.
Sounds beautiful.
All right, man. Great to talk.
All right, my bro.
Thanks
You stay
again.
healthy, man.
You too. And thanks, everybody out there for watching. Pass it along, and we'll see you next time. All right. Peace out.